Tonight on Reporting Scotland, claims of doping in Scottish sport. A former athlete who used steroids alleges football and rugby players also used performance-enhancing drugs in the 1980s.
Personally, I knew of 2 football players that definitely took drugs, and I knew 4 rugby players that definitely took drugs.
The claims come amid new allegations of drug taking by present-day sports stars. Also in the programme. As the politicians campaign in the Holyrood election, we'll hear voters' views on tax and welfare. The daughter of an Edinburgh man imprisoned in Saudi Arabia accuses the Foreign Office of not doing enough to help secure his release. And Celtic's assistant manager says emulating Lionel Messi should be the inspiration for winger Patrick Roberts. Good evening. A former Scottish athlete has claimed he knows of 4 top rugby players and 2 professional footballers who took performance-enhancing drugs in the 1980s. Drew McMaster, who himself took steroids during his career as a sprinter, made the claims after new allegations emerged of drug taking by present-day sports stars. Lisa Summers reports.
Drew McMaster was part of the 4x100 metres relay team that won gold in the 1978 Commonwealth Games. He was later to admit he'd taken performance-enhancing drugs in the past, but he says he wasn't the only one. He's already accused teammate Alan Wells of taking steroids, claims the Olympic champion strongly denies. Wells says he was subjected to the most rigorous and random testing regime of any athlete at the time, never once failing a drugs test. Now Drew McMaster says he also knows of elite athletes in other sports involved in doping too.
Personally, I knew of 2 football players that definitely took drugs, and I knew 4 rugby players that definitely took drugs.
And household names, people that we would know?
Yes, we were a small group in the sense that there was a few of us that were in the know, that knew what to do, how to do it, and we also had, obviously, the same doctors involved.
McMaster has not named the athletes he claims were involved, but he says he wants people to be aware of the prevalence of drugs during this time. These new allegations come after claims at the weekend that 150 British athletes are involved in doping, again raising questions about how easy it is for athletes to access drugs and evade testing. The head of the World Anti-Doping Agency says it wouldn't be sensible to test everybody.
You need to target test. You need some intelligence behind that, so you test the right athletes for the right substances at the right time.
One professor of sports ethics says he's concerned the public are losing faith in the world of sport.
I wonder whether that battle's not been largely lost already, actually. The real danger, I guess, is that some people who, and I guess I mean people in society who lionize sport the way that they do, don't even realize that something's already gone. But the problem is that if we don't, then what's the alternative? Does sport become some sort of freak show for people who only care about certain sets of values?
Drew McMaster is backing calls today to make it a criminal offence to take performance-enhancing drugs. WADA, though, says that they believe the current sanctions are tough enough. But as the science of doping develops, more will need to be done to catch those who use drugs to get ahead in sport. Lisa Summers, Reporting Scotland.
Labour has sought to regain the initiative in the election campaign by pressing SNP ministers for full details of their investment talks with Chinese firms. The First Minister, Nicola Sturgeon, insists she has nothing to hide. Here's our political correspondent, Glenn Campbell.
This is the bit where I can screw it up, is that right?
The last thing Labour needs is another election screw-up. The chapati making in Leith went fine, which is more than can be said for the party's campaign so far. Labour's critics say their campaign's a mess. After last week, the party changed its tax policy, dropping plans to replace a £100 rebate with new help for lower earners. Then at the weekend, Kezia Dugdale backtracked after saying it wasn't inconceivable she'd support independence for Scotland if the UK left the EU. Today, Labour seems to have decided attack is the best form of defence. They're questioning why the First Minister quietly signed an understanding with Chinese businesses last month and only published details last night after photographs appeared in the Chinese media.
We're talking about £10 billion worth of potential investment in Scotland with the Chinese. We don't know what for, we don't know who was in the room, we don't know what the detail of that deal is.
The SNP MP George Kerevan criticises the UK Conservative government for making what he calls a pact with Chinese state capitalism in a newspaper column today. But in Glasgow, the Scottish Tories say the infrastructure investment SNP ministers are seeking from China also needs explanation.
We don't know from what the Scottish Government's now been forced to publish what China is getting out of this deal from Scotland. We don't know what Scotland's getting out of this deal, so it's very hard to judge whether it's a good or bad deal.
Jumping in with questions of his own from the borders, the leader of the Scottish Liberal Democrats.
It's a bit suspicious for the SNP, who are always shouting about everything that they do. So I'm a bit suspicious. I want to find out more. That's why they need to come clean.
Raising a glass to a successful small enterprise in Shetland before posing with ponies. The SNP leader says Chinese whispers are distorting her business dealings with the world's second biggest economy.
This is an agreement to look at where there is potential for significant investment into Scotland. And, frankly, if my political opponents are saying that as First Minister I shouldn't encourage investment into Scotland, then all I think they're doing is demonstrating that they're not fit to be in the job.
But in an election, it's the job of all party leaders to fight for the biggest possible say in the next Scottish Parliament. Glenn Campbell reporting Scotland.
Scotland remains divided in attitudes to taxation. Well, that's according to a new poll for BBC Scotland. The survey suggests support for increasing the very top rate of tax. But there's also apparent backing for keeping Scottish tax rates in line with England. Here's our political editor, Brian Taylor.
This is the Edinburgh Beer Factory. A craft brewery with a dozen staff. They're small but ambitious.
Because we need to lager the beer for about 6 weeks.
Production only started last summer. To succeed, they need Scotland to prosper. So tax and spending really matter.
With Holyrood gaining new powers, the question of tax is predominant in this election. Should people in Scotland be prepared to pay more tax, perhaps to fund services such as education? Or should tax here be the same as it is in the rest of the UK? What about the standard rate? What about the upper rate? Big questions.
In our poll, respondents were asked to rate policies from 1 up to 10, producing an average score. First, the idea of increasing all rates of income tax by 1 penny in the pound. That's backed by Labour and the Liberal Democrats. In our poll, it rated 6.2. But it was slightly outpolled by the idea of keeping the Scottish rate of income tax the same as in England. That plan, backed by Conservatives, rated 6.5. Higher ranked still was Labour's idea of increasing the very top rate for those earning more than £150,000 from 45 pence to 50 pence. That rated 7.3, relatively popular. Among brewery staff, some are willing to pay more tax.
The fact that we prioritise free education and free healthcare, if that obviously comes at a cost, and if that's higher taxation, I think that's fine.
It's a penny. I don't think we'll feel it, and for the funds we could raise and the good that we could do, we should do it.
Some think it's simply wrong that people in Scotland should pay more.
I feel we all work very hard. It's a bit galling to think I could be working as hard and earning the same amount of money 60 miles down the road in Berwick.
Some fear the impact on low earners, even although both Labour and the Lib Dems say they protect those earning less than 20,000.
I just don't think that's a lot of money. So if, in a family or, single mom or someone that is in trouble, I think that might have an effect.
Critics say even if the starting rate for tax increases, people in Scotland would still end up paying more than in England. The Dems say a new zero-rate band could help. But how about that top-rate tax plan? Opinion was divided.
Personally, I don't buy into the idea that a higher rate of income tax for higher earners is going to scare off those within that bracket.
The top rate tax is sort of irrelevant because you don't raise any money, and there's about 17,000 people in the whole of Scotland who are eligible, so it won't solve any problem. So I would be putting tax up across the board.
The SNP would leave Scottish tax rates alone, but would reverse most of a scheduled tax cut for higher earners by altering the threshold for the upper 40p rate. Those details emerged after our survey questions were drafted. But we did ask about the general notion of keeping the higher tax threshold at the current 2016 rate, even if it's raised elsewhere. That rated 5.3, round about the midway point. The SNP say support for their brew is strengthening as people realise it's aimed at higher earners while protecting the low paid. Back to the staff. They generally wanted real delivery from public services if they had to pay more tax.
If there was a higher rate of income tax in Scotland, I'd want to see the benefit of that in terms of health, environment, education, really across the range of areas where they have actually control.
On council tax, our survey suggests folk favour higher charges for more expensive homes. Finally, welfare. More money for those who care for people with disabilities was rated 6.4. Higher still, there was 7.3 support for the idea of doubling the level of childcare for 3- and 4-year-olds. That's an SNP policy, although other parties also have childcare offers. Your election, your choice.
You're watching Reporting Scotland, and still to come on tonight's programme. The problems faced by people with complex medical needs when their care home closes.
And coming up in sport, a Premiership match is postponed after the Hearts squad are hit with a sickness bug. And why Celtic's star of the weekend should aim to emulate the great Lionel Messi.
The daughter of an Edinburgh man imprisoned in Saudi Arabia has accused the Foreign Office of not doing enough to help secure his release. Kulsum Udin says her father, Kauser, was wrongly imprisoned during a pilgrimage to Mecca. Despite serving a 35-day sentence, he's still in jail, and his family fear his case is in danger of being forgotten. Stephen Godden reports.
That's my dad with my big brother and me.
More than a month has passed since Kulsum Udin last saw her father, Kauser. He was arrested on the first day of their first pilgrimage to Mecca as a family. The charge, assaulting a policeman. His daughter says he was simply trying to steady himself when he lost his balance amidst a confused crowd. A 35-day sentence has come and gone, and still he remains in a Saudi prison, his only contact via the occasional phone call.
He's just quite tired. He's just hoping to get out soon because he doesn't want to stay there because it's not ideal conditions, obviously, as well.
Her father is the family breadwinner, his absence taking its toll on Kulsum's mother.
It's hard to see her cry. She does cry. She doesn't know what to do. She feels the pressure as well because we have family and they're asking, what are you doing? But my mum's trying her best. It's not her fault that things aren't getting done.
A trip organised by his local mosque. Mr Udin's family say the Foreign Office haven't done enough from the moment things turned sour. In a statement, the Foreign Office say that they are providing assistance to a British national in Saudi Arabia following their arrest in February, adding that they'll remain in contact with the family and local authorities.
We have to wait for the Saudi courts now to decide what happens next. How long will that be? We have no idea. They have advised us that the Saudi system is very bureaucratic and it's something we'll just have to wait for, which is worrying for the family.
I just feel like it's going to get forgotten about. He's going to stay there and we're not going to give him the support he needs to get out. We're just going to forget about it because we're being really slow with the process.
Kauser Udin's family say the time for kind words has long since passed. What they want now is action. Stephen Godden, Reporting Scotland, Edinburgh.
A woman found murdered at her home in Inverness had suffered a sustained and brutal assault, according to police. The body of 60-year-old Elizabeth Mackay was discovered at a house in the city's Hilton area on Thursday by two friends. Police are appealing for witnesses.
What we do know is she was a fairly private individual, described as a loner. She lived alone, 60 years old. And we need the community need to help us with this and speak to us about any known associates or friends, any habits she would have, or indeed, equally as importantly, whether they've seen or heard anything suspicious around a particular time.
A Glasgow-based logistics company has agreed to pay a penalty of more than £2 million after it uncovered illegal bribery operations within its own firm. The Braid Group launched an investigation and found 2 contracts, which were won in 2012, had broken the law. It reported itself to the Crown Office. The penalty will be paid into a fund that will benefit communities across the country. The company says it's implementing new policies to stop bribery happening again. Red Cross House in Irvine was supposed to help residents move on to live as full lives as possible, despite some challenging medical conditions. In fact, some residents ended up staying there for years. But now the house is to close, leaving some young people ending up in care homes for the elderly. Hugh Williams reports.
Any difference?
Residents at Options for Independence are using social media to highlight their situation.
I don't think it's right that somebody can just sit in an office and destroy people's life.
They say the centre isn't just where they stay, it's the basis of their lives.
For me personally, since moving into Options for Independence, I've been able to finish my studies, and also I'm starting my own business. So if I'm placed in the wrong accommodation, even for an interim period, is going to have a negative impact on everything I've worked to achieve.
In a statement, British Red Cross said they are doing all they can to support residents. They stressed that anyone living at Options for Independence had been placed there by local authorities or health authorities who are responsible for their care. The local council say the case has highlighted a real problem.
What this has really highlighted to us is really what facilities we have in the area, or indeed where there's a gap in facilities within the area, and it has made us think more carefully about what our plans are for the future for young people and for adults with a whole range of complex needs.
Some of the residents from Irvine have already been placed into old people's homes because there's nowhere else for them.
Care homes for the elderly are excellent facilities, but they're geared very much for older people and their care needs. So when you've got somebody that's relatively young that goes into that environment, they don't have the peer support, they don't have people with a similar maybe condition that they can relate to, and they often don't have the right level of care that they need.
Time is of the essence for Danielle Farrell and the few others still living at Options for Independence. It closes on April the 15th. Hugh Williams, reporting Scotland, Irvine.
Well, let's get the sports news now from Jonathan.
More a medical report than a sports report tonight, Jackie. Tomorrow's match between Inverness and Hearts is off because the Edinburgh squad has been ravaged by a sickness bug. The league say the vast majority of the first-team players, including their 2 goalkeepers, have been hit by gastroenteritis. Brian McLaughlin's at the Hearts training base at Riccarton in Edinburgh. Brian, what more can you tell us?
Yes, well, Jonathan, it's been quite a long day for most of these Hearts players. The bus left to go to Inverness around 1 o'clock, and around just under an hour ago it arrived back. Only 7 first-team players had made the trip to Inverness after an overnight sickness bug hit the squad quite badly indeed. And the Hearts head coach Robbie Neilson told me just a short time ago just how long a day this has been and when it became apparent that they had a problem.
Yeah, well, we'd heard last night a few of the boys had phoned in sick, and then this morning when I came in early, a few more phone calls, and then it turned out, with 17 boys unavailable, whether that's illness or injury. So it was a bit of a hectic day.
Well, Jonathan, I can tell you as well that Hearts Training Academy here on the outskirts of Edinburgh is now being closed for the next 2 days, and the Hearts players will report back on Thursday morning. They have a crucial game on Friday night against Aberdeen, and they'll do a number count then to see exactly who is available. Robbie Neilson is hopeful that the game will go ahead. A crucial game for Hearts, but disappointment for the Hearts fans who are heading north tomorrow. I can tell you as well, this is a very rare occurrence, says Jonathan. Indeed, only once in the last 10 years has there been a request for a game to be postponed due to illness. That has actually turned down when Dundee asked the league for a game against Celtic to be called off. That was turned down, but Hearts' game against Inverness is off tomorrow.
Brian, for the moment, thank you very much indeed. Now, the Celtic assistant manager John Collins says that emulating Lionel Messi should be the aspiration for Patrick Roberts. The winger, on loan from Manchester City, starred at the weekend as Celtic beat Hearts 3-1, and the Celtic captain says he now expects Roberts to play a significant role in the title race.
He slipped it through here for Patrick Roberts. That's brilliant.
Patrick Roberts has always modelled himself on Lionel Messi. A lofty aim, but one the experts believe must be embraced. Just 19 years of age, he has a long way to go, but the similarities are there.
Well, I don't like comparing him to obviously the best player in the world, in my opinion, is Messi, but you can see where people get the resemblances. He's left-footed, he likes to take people on. If he ends up half as good as Messi, then he's done well. But it's got to be his target, to try and emulate what Lionel Messi does week in, week out, which is score goals, create chances.
Manchester City signed Roberts from Fulham for £12 million. He's on loan at Celtic for this season and next. His 2 goals against Hearts thrilled the home crowd.
You appear to be becoming a fan's favourite pretty quickly.
Yeah, well, I don't know, it's maybe my game. I like getting on the ball. I enjoy playing football, so if I enjoy it, then they obviously enjoy me, so which is a good thing for me and the club.
And his captain believes Roberts could now play a significant role in the title race.
He's in great form now, and you want the people that are in fine form to keep playing, and for the wee man still to get confidence as well. And football's all about confidence, and when somebody's playing well and high and flying, you need to continue playing them.
So the long-term challenge, emulating Lionel Messi. Next up, the more immediate challenge, an away match to Dundee tomorrow night. Now, football's latest manager of the month, Motherwell's Mark McGee, admits he thought he could be sacked in February. Then they were fighting relegation. Now they're in the top 6 and eyeing up European football, as Kenny Crawford reports.
Dreich Easter holiday weather at Loch Lomond, but hot rolls for gathered journalists suggested nothing would be dampening Motherwell's spirits. And here's why. A second manager of the month gong in 2016 for their boss.
5 wins out of 5 is Mark McGee's current record at Motherwell, and 3 of those came in March, which is why he's winning this award. And all this for a club who only stayed in the Premiership via a relegation playoff last season.
And just 7 weeks ago, the Steelmen had been dreading the drop again. This defeat to Kilmarnock meant 6 league matches without a victory. Boos rang out for McGee, who was bracing himself for bad news.
I think our form in terms of results in February was, in many clubs' eyes, sackable. You know what I mean? We were losing games, you know. I don't expect any dispensation because I've won a manager of the month thing. I need to win next month, you know, to be sure I'm not getting the sack again.
McGee says there aren't many better players in the Premiership than Marvin Johnson. His winner against Cali Thistle on Saturday has allowed the boss to enjoy a couple of days off with his son.
I will have a swim later with Archie, and we'll relax, and then tomorrow we'll start the preparation, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, to play Celtic.
Probably best that swim is indoors.
Congratulations to Mark McGee. Unfortunately, the weather could have been better today.
It could have been better. Thanks very much, Jonathan. Now, here's Andrew Kerr with details of Scotland 2016.
Opposition parties are saying they have grave concerns about what they're calling a secret trade deal between Scotland and China. We'll debate that as the SNP say there's nothing secret about the Memorandum of Understanding. Also, whiter than white Iceland is tainted by allegations of corruption in the Panama Papers. That's at 10:30 on BBC Two.
Now to that weather, and someone has to be to blame, Gillian.
No, that's so unfair, Jackie. Friday looks like a nice day. I can offer you that. Good evening to you. It was pretty dreich for many of us today. Lots of scenes like this one sent in by one of our weather watchers. And this evening, still plenty of cloud around and some outbreaks of rain. You can see it swirling around on that satellite image. And it's all down to this area of low pressure centred across Scotland. And through this evening, still some heavy pulses of rain to come for eastern parts. So for the Borders, the Lothians, Fife, Angus and eastern Aberdeenshire, really quite poor road conditions with surface water and spray. But for most of us, the rain does become lighter during the course of the night. And underneath all that cloud, certainly not a cold one, 4 to 7 Celsius for most of us. But tomorrow, it's a cloudy start, still with outbreaks of rain around. A gradual improvement through the course of the day. The rain continues to fizzle and fade for most of us. Skies gradually brightening from the west to allow some sunshine to develop. But it will be a fairly slow process process. By 4 o'clock, though, some sunshine for Dumfries and Galloway, the western borders, Ayrshire and Kintyre, the western half of the Central Belt, as well as Argyll. But further east, hanging on to that cloud, some bits and pieces of rain, and the rain most persistent over Caithness, around the Moray Firth area, over Aberdeenshire and over the Northern Isles. And where you're still under that cloud and rain, it will feel pretty chilly, but where you have a bit of brightness, certainly feeling much better than today, with highs of 12 Celsius. So tomorrow evening, the remnants of that rain continue to work their way northeastwards, but we see another belt of it moving in from the west, linked to this weather front, and that will push eastwards across the country overnight into Wednesday. It does push through, so by Wednesday, most of us into these clearer, showery conditions behind it. So bright spells and scattered showers, but some of those showers will be heavy, especially for southwest Scotland, bringing a risk of hail, the odd rumble of thunder, and a chilly feel to things with those gusty westerly winds, even touching gale force around exposed parts of the west coast. For Thursday, winds move into the north. Still a fair few showers around in the north. Best of the sunshine in the southwest. That's the forecast. Jackie.
Thank you, Gillian. And now a reminder of tonight's main news. The Prime Minister has been urged to crack down on offshore tax havens after a huge data leak exposed efforts by international figures to hide assets abroad. The names of prominent Britons, including David Cameron's father, are listed as clients of Mossack Fonseca, a Panama-based law firm. And that's Reporting Scotland. I'll be back at 10:25. Until then, from all the team, goodbye.